Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. Today's quiz is going to be about women in the Bible. Let's get started. 1. Who was the first woman mentioned in the Bible? Sarah, Deborah, Mary, or Eve? Eve. Genesis 2:22. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. 2. Which woman tricked her father into marrying Jacob by disguising herself as her sister? Rachel, Rebecca, Leah, or Tamar? Leah. Genesis 29:23. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob made love to her. 3. Who was a prophetess and judge of Israel who led her people to victory over the Canaanites? Miriam, Ruth, Deborah, or Esther? Deborah. Judges 4:4. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. 4. Who was Sarah's Egyptian maidservant who bore Abraham's first son Ishmael? Rebecca, Keturah, Hagar, or Zipporah? Hagar. Genesis 16:15. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. 5. Who was the Moabite woman who became the great-grandmother of King David? Naomi, Ruth, Rahab, or Abigail? Ruth. Ruth 4:17. The woman living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. 6. Who was the woman who hid the Israelite spies in Jericho, helping them escape? Delilah, Rahab, Jael, or Tamar? Rahab. Joshua 2:4. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. 7. Which queen risked her life to save her people from destruction in the Persian Empire? Vashti, Esther, Bathsheba, or Jezebel? Esther. Esther 4:16. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. 8. Who was the wife of Nabal, who later became one of King David's wives after Nabal's death? Michal, Tamar, Abigail, or Bathsheba? Abigail. 1 Samuel 25:39. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong, and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head. Then David sent word to Abigail, asking her to become his wife. 9. Which woman, after being barren, prayed to God and gave birth to a son named Samuel? Hannah, Rachel, Sarah, or Elizabeth? Hannah. 1 Samuel 1:20. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. 10. Who was the sister of Moses and Aaron, who led the women of Israel in song after the crossing of the Red Sea? Zipporah, Deborah, Miriam, or Naomi? Miriam. Exodus 15:20-21. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea. 11. Who was the wife of Isaac and mother of Jacob and Esau? Leah, Rachel, Rebecca, or Sarah? Rebekah, Genesis 25:21, Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. 12. Which woman deceived Samson into revealing the secret of his strength? Jezebel, Rachel, Delilah, or Rahab? Delilah, Judges 16:18. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. 13. Who was the mother of John the Baptist? Mary, Salome, Martha, or Elizabeth? Elizabeth, Luke 1:57-58. When it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. 14. Which woman was turned into a pillar of salt for looking back at Sodom? Lot's wife, Joseph's wife, Jacob's wife, or Rebekah? Lot's wife, Genesis 19:26, but Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. 15. Who was the mother of King Solomon? Bathsheba, Michal, Ruth, or Abigail? Bathsheba, 2 Samuel 12:24. Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went to her and made love to her. She gave birth to a son, and they named him Solomon. The Lord loved him. 16. Who was Isaac's wife? Rachel, Dinah, Rebekah, or Leah? Rebekah, Genesis 24:67. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. 17. Which woman from Shunem provided for the prophet Elisha and received the miracle of a son? The widow of Zarephath, the Shunammite woman, a woman from Tekoa, or the woman from Gibeah? Which woman from Shunem provided for the prophet Elisha and received the miracle of a son? The widow of Zarephath, the Shunammite woman, the woman from Tekoa, or the woman from Gibeah? The Shunammite woman, 2 Kings 4:16. About this time next year, Elisha said, "You will hold a son in your arms." "No, my lord," she objected. "Please, man of God, don't mislead your servant." 18. Who was the wise woman of Tekoa sent by Joab to persuade King David to bring Absalom back to Jerusalem? The woman of Tekoa, 2 Samuel 14:2-3. So Joab sent someone to Tekoa and had a wise woman brought from there. He said to her, "Pretend you are in mourning, dress in mourning clothes, and don't use any cosmetic lotions. Act like a woman who has spent many days grieving for the dead." 19. Who was the prostitute that gave birth to twins, Perez and Zerah? Rahab, Bathsheba, Tamar, or Dinah? Tamar, Genesis 38:27. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. 20. Who was the mother of Jesus? Elizabeth, Martha, Mary, or Salome? Mary, Luke 1:31. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. 21. Which woman worked as a seller of purple cloth and was one of the first converts in Philippi? Priscilla, Lydia, Dorcas, or Eunice? Lydia, Acts 16:14. One of those listening was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. 22. Which woman in the Old Testament was accused of wanting to divide a baby into two halves? Bathsheba, a harlot, the Queen of Sheba, or Michal? A harlot. 1 Kings 3:25. The king said, "Cut the living child in two and give half to one and half to the other." 23. Who traveled with Ruth back to Bethlehem after the death of her husband and sons? Naomi, Orpah, Hannah, or Abigail? Naomi, Ruth 1:16, but Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I'll go, and where you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." 24. Which queen of Israel is infamous for her promotion of Baal worship? Jezebel, Athaliah, Vashti, or Michal? Jezebel, 1 Kings 18:4. While Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them in 2 caves, 50 in each, and had supplied them with food and water. 25. Who was the woman that Jesus commended for giving 2 small coins as an offering at the temple? Mary, Syrophoenician woman, widow of Nain, or the poor widow? The poor widow. Mark 12:43-44. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." 26. Which woman was described as being very beautiful and later became King David's wife? Bathsheba, Tamar, Abigail, or Michal? Abigail, 1 Samuel 25:3. His name was Nabal and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. 27. Who was Mary's sister, who was busy with household duties while Mary sat at Jesus' feet listening to him? Joanna, Salome, Martha, or Elizabeth? Martha, Luke 10:40. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." 28. Who was the wife of Aquila? Lydia, Sapphira, Priscilla, or Phoebe? Priscilla, Acts 18:26. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. 29. Who was the daughter of Saul who became David's wife, but later despised him for dancing before the Lord? Michal, 2 Samuel 6:16. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window, and when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. 30. Who was the wife of Pontius Pilate who warned him about Jesus because of a troubling dream? Herodias, Salome, Claudia, or Susanna? Claudia, Matthew 27:19. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." 31. Who was sacrificed because of a vow her father made to God? Miriam's sister, Jephthah's daughter, Levi's wife, or Zipporah? Jephthah's daughter, Judges 11:39. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelite tradition. 32. Which woman hid her son Joash to protect him from being killed by Queen Athaliah and helped him become king? Jehosheba, Huldah, Miriam, or Ruth? Jehosheba, 2 Kings 11:2. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram and sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. She put him in his nurse in a bedroom to hide him from Athaliah so he was not killed. 33. Which woman was barren but later bore Jacob's favorite son? Leah, Sarah, Rachel, or Rebekah? Rachel, Genesis 35:18. As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Benoni, but his father named him Benjamin. 34. Who was a prophetess who confirmed the identity of the infant Jesus when he was presented at the temple? Mary, Elizabeth, Anna, or Salome? Anna, Luke 2:36-38. There was also a prophet, Anna, the daughter of Penuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was very old. She had lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then was a widow until she was 84. 35. Who was a judge who was murdered by Jael with a tent peg? Ehud, Abimelech, Jabin, or Sisera? Sisera, Judges 4:21. But Jael, Heber's wife, picked up a tent peg and a hammer, and she went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. 36. Who was a woman who falsely accused Joseph of attempting to assault her? Lot's wife, Paul's wife, Potiphar's wife, or Rebekah? Potiphar's wife, Genesis 39:14-15. She called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. 37. Who was the first wife of Jacob, whom he was tricked into marrying? Rachel, Zilpah, Bilhah, or Leah? Leah, Genesis 29:25. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? 38. Who was a concubine of King Saul who was taken by Abner after Saul's death? Rizpah, Tamar, Michal, or Hagar? Rizpah, 2 Samuel 3:7. Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, why did you sleep with my father's concubine? 39. Who was the wife of Moses, known for saving his life by circumcising their son? Miriam, Sarah, Zipporah, or Jochebed? Zipporah, Exodus 4:25. But Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she said. 40. Who helped David escape from Saul by lowering him through a window? Michal, Bathsheba, Abigail, or Ruth? Michal, 1 Samuel 19:12. So Michal let David down through a window, and he fled and escaped. 41. What item did Rebekah receive from Abraham's servant when she was chosen to be Isaac's wife? A ring and bracelets, a cloak, a gold crown, or a necklace? A ring and bracelets. Genesis 24:22. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring weighing a beka and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. 42. What did Rachel steal from her father Laban's house when she left with Jacob? His sheep, his staff, his gold, or his idols? His idols. Genesis 31:19. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. 43. What did Hannah promise to give to God if he granted her a son? A tenth of her possessions, her firstborn son for service, a gold offering, or a lamb for sacrifice? Her firstborn son for service. 1 Samuel 1:11. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. 44. What did Jezebel use to try to falsely accuse and have Naboth killed? Bribery, poison, letters sealed with the king's seal, or an army? Letters sealed with the king's seal. 1 Kings 21:8. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, placed his seal on them, and sent them to the elders and nobles who lived in Naboth's city with him. 45. What did Lot's daughter do after they escaped Sodom and Gomorrah? They tricked their father into conceiving children with them. Genesis 19:33-35. That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. 46. What did Sarah do when she overheard the angel of the Lord saying that she would have a son in her old age? She wept, she laughed, she prayed, or she doubted? She laughed. Genesis 18:12. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? 47. Who was Gomer, the wife of the prophet Hosea, and what was her occupation before marriage? A servant of the temple, a prophetess, a prostitute, or a shepherdess? A prostitute. Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, Go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord. 48. Who was the Philistine woman Samson fell in love with? Delilah, Rahab, Jezebel, or Jael? Delilah. Judges 16:18. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, Come back once more, he has told me everything. So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. 49. Which woman of the Old Testament used a millstone to kill Abimelech by dropping it from a tower? A woman from Thebes, a woman from Gaza, a woman from Israel, or a woman from Jerusalem? A woman from Thebes. Judges 9:53. A woman dropped an upper millstone on his head and cracked his skull. 50. Who was the wife of Elkanah and the mother of the prophet Samuel? Sarah, Leah, Rebekah, or Hannah? Hannah. 1 Samuel 1:20. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. 51. Which woman gave birth to Ishmael, Abraham's first son? Keturah, Sarah, Hagar, or Rebekah? Hagar, Genesis 16:15. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. 52. What did Delilah use to tie up Samson after he revealed the secret of his strength? New ropes, bowstrings, chains, or his hair? New ropes, Judges 16:11-12. He said, "If anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. 53. What did Miriam do after the Israelites crossed the Red Sea safely? She built an altar, she offered a sacrifice, she sang and danced with tambourines, or she gave a speech. She sang and danced with tambourines. Exodus 15:20. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. 54. What did Bathsheba do after hearing that her son Solomon was chosen by David to be king over Israel? She bowed with her face to the ground. 1 Kings 1:31. Then Bathsheba bowed down with her face to the ground, prostrating herself before the king, and said, "May my lord King David live forever." 55. Who did Esther invite to her banquet besides King Xerxes? Mordecai, Vashti, Haman, or Daniel? Haman, Esther 5:8. If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet. I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question. 56. Who did Sarah convince Abraham to send away after Isaac was born? Lot and his wife, Rebekah and Jacob, Hagar and Ishmael, or Keturah and her sons? Hagar and Ishmael, Genesis 21:10. And she said to Abraham, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." 57. What item did Tamar use to prove that Judah was the father of her child? His signet, cord, and staff, his sandals, a piece of his robe, or a bracelet? A signet, cord, and a staff. Genesis 38:25. And she was being brought out. She sent a message to her father-in-law. "I'm pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cords and staff these are." 58. What did the angel of the Lord tell Manoah's wife about her future son Samson? That he would be king, he would be a prophet, he would deliver Israel, or he would be wealthy. He would deliver Israel. Judges 13:5. You'll become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is to be a Nazirite dedicated to God from the womb. He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines. 59. What did Rahab use to help the Israelite spies escape from her house? A basket, a ladder, a rope, or a passage? A rope. Joshua 2:15. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. 60. Who was a prophetess and judge of Israel who summoned Barak to lead an army against the Canaanites? Deborah, Miriam, Huldah, or Jael? Deborah, Judges 4:6. She sent for Barak son of Abinoam from Kadesh in Naphtali and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun and lead them up to Mount Tabor." 61. Which daughter of Herodias asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter? Salome, Martha, Bernice, or Lydia? Salome, Mark 6:24-25. She went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for? The head of John the Baptist?" She answered. At once the girl hurried to the king with the request, "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." 62. What did the Shunammite woman provide for Elisha whenever he passed by her home? Food and water, a room with a fireplace, a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp, or money and provisions? A bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. 2 Kings 4:10. Let's make a small room on the roof and put in it a bed and a table, a chair, and a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes to us. 63. What did Ruth do at Boaz's feet during the night as part of her request for protection and marriage? She poured oil over his feet, she anointed his feet with perfume, she uncovered his feet and lay down, or she placed flowers at his feet. She uncovered his feet and lay down. Ruth 3:7. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. 64. Which woman in the New Testament was struck dead alongside her husband Ananias? Priscilla, Sapphira, Lydia, or Dorcas? Sapphira, Acts 5:9-10. Peter said to her, "How could you conspire to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also." At that moment she fell down at his feet and died. 65. Who did Rachel give to Jacob as a surrogate wife when she could not have the children? Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah, or Hagar? Bilhah, Genesis 33. Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." 66. Who rescued the baby Moses from the Nile River and raised him as her own? Hatshepsut, Pharaoh's daughter, Thutmose's daughter, or Merneptah's daughter? Pharaoh's daughter. Exodus 2:5-6. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. 67. What did the woman with the issue of blood do to be healed by Jesus? She anointed his feet, she asked him for her healing, she touched the hem of his garment, or she bathed his feet with her tears. She touched the hem of his garment. Mark 5:27-28. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." 68. What did the woman who touched Jesus' garment hope to receive? Healing, wisdom, money, or freedom? Healing. Mark 5:28. Because she thought, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." 69. What did Esther risk by approaching the king uninvited? Death, imprisonment, banishment, or loss of wealth? Death. Esther 4:11. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law: they be put to death. 70. How did Jael kill Sisera? By poison, by tent peg, by sword, or by fire? By tent peg. Judges 4:21. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground and he died. 71. What did Naomi advise Ruth to do on the threshing floor? Wait until morning, talk to Boaz directly, wash and perfume herself, or ask for a blessing. Wash and perfume herself. Ruth 3:3. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. 72. What did Mary Magdalene witness at Jesus' tomb? Angels, a vision of heaven, the risen Jesus, or the empty tomb? The risen Jesus. John 20:14. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. 73. What did Pilate's wife send him regarding Jesus? A warning dream, a request, letter of complaint, or a bribe? A warning dream. Matthew 27:19. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." 74. What did the woman with the issue of blood touch to be healed by Jesus? His robe, his shoulder, his hand, or his staff? His robe. Mark 5:28. If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. 75. What did Mary, the mother of Jesus, say to the servants at the wedding in Cana? Do as I say, prepare wine, ask Jesus for help, or whatever he says, do it. Whatever he says, do it. John 2:5. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. 76. What was the relationship between the two women who came to King Solomon claiming to be the mother of the same baby? Sisters, friends, neighbors, or strangers? Neighbors. 1 Kings 3:16-17. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord." 77. What did Lot's wife do that led her to becoming a pillar of salt? She ignored the angel's warning, she looked back at the burning city, she stole from the city, or she tried to return to Sodom. She looked back at the burning city. Genesis 19:26. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. 78. Who was the Queen of Sheba that visited Solomon to test his wisdom? Makeda, Sheba, Candace, or Azubah? Makeda. 1 Kings 10:1. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to the Lord, she came to test Solomon with hard questions. 79. Who held a significant position in Solomon's court but was later a part of his downfall? Naamah, Ahinoam, Makeda, or Lamech? Naamah. 1 Kings 14:21. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, was king of Judah. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel in which to put his name. His mother's name was Naamah. She was an Ammonite. 80. Who was the woman that King Solomon famously judged in a dispute over a baby by suggesting it be divided? The mother of a dead child, the neighbor, the true mother of the living child, or the nurse? The true mother of the living child. 1 Kings 3:26. Then the woman whose son was alive spoke to the king, for her spirit was stirred within her. She said, "Pardon me, my lord, give her the living baby, don't kill him." And that's all our questions for today. Let us know how you did down below with your score, and then share this with your friends and family to compare them, and then we'll see you all in the next one.